Hello everyone, this is ViperStrike95 here today, and this is part 4 of our series. We will be heading to a doubleheader today. And basically what you don't know is a doubleheader is that it is when two games happen in the same day is what they call a doubleheader. And for this stream, I think it's more appropriate than ever because we're visiting two major league cities today, Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., to visit both the Orioles and the Nationals. So, for our first look at the flight, we will be heading down to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and that will be home to Little League Baseball. Second leg, we will actually go through the city of Harrisburg, and then once we visit our waypoint in Harrisburg, then we will go to Martin State Airport, just right outside Baltimore, and then we will finally make our way to Washington, D.C. Today, that's kind of how we feel. I mean, right here, we're in Blue. Right here is our local airport for the last flight, Blue Knob Valley Airport, located not far outside of Altoona. Now, if you're wondering yourself, the question is, what kind of plane are we taking for the first two legs of the flight? Since those would be really long legs, well, I will be introducing you to one of my favorite planes in the whole sim. This is the Sirius Sr-22. Ever since its introduction back in 2003, it has been the best-selling general aviation plane in the world. With a cruising speed of 150 knots, a range of over 800 nautical miles, and a cruising altitude, and the max altitude of 17,000 feet. This plane represents the best all-around plane I think in the game, in the sim. It could do almost anything, maybe except taking off from short runways. But this is a very beautiful plane. Now the question is how do you get this plane exactly? Well, you get this when you order the Premium Deluxe Edition of the game. You get this beauty of a plane from them. It's kind of expensive, so if I were you, wait till they get a sale for that and just buy the upgrade when it comes on sale if you have it already. As well, I see that Trollwell's is the user in the chat. Hello there. Good to see you. So the question now gets, how do we start this plane? Well, let me get back to the cockpit. So this is what kind of looks like the cockpit. As you can see here, there's the two Garmin G1000 displays, right here and right here. Then this thing's got a little bit of a keyboard, and what you do with the keyboard is you can just select the things on the keyboard and such. There's your transponder, your FMS mode. Those are inoperate in the plane. This is just the base plane. And then, oh, hello there, P. Della Bravo. Good to see you. It's nice that you came here today. So I'm on the East USA server on 7 Golf 4, and I'm on the East USA server. Hello there, you're charging, but in 20 minutes it'll be dinner time in France. Yep, it's nice to see you there, Goblin Zeus. I know France has got some very delicious food. I mean, food is a big part of French culture. So how do we start this engine? Okay, we let's engage our parking brake. It's already been set. Let's turn on our battery switches. Boom, boom. It's got two battery switches. We turn on our strobe lights. That's easy. Now we get the mixture rich. It's already pushed to the max. You fully push the power lever, which is the throttle. Now we prime. Set it to prime, and then we set it to boost. Then we go back. We push by 1/4 of an inch right here. Oh. I think, let me go check. I gotta turn my thing again. Just hold 1 second, French all. I'm really sorry. I left it capitalized. There, you can try it again, French all. It should work. DA4 is a good pick, but another plane that I really like recommending is the Bonanza, because we're going to get really fast. At what speed? Well, I'll be around 150 knots. Okay, if you want to know the route for it all, let me do this. Here's the route for it all. That's the basic route. I now gotta turn the rest of the plane on. Okay, thank you. Okay, it's done. Now I gotta start the ignition. The key, there's actually a key, like a car. Starts. It should do pretty good. Now I gotta retard, but I've already set it back. Overpressure's good. Now we turn on the alternate batteries. Now we turn on the alternators checked on. We turn on the avionics switch, checked. And all I gotta do is release the parking brake, but I'll get that done. I'm also gonna turn on the pilot heat and the nav lights, just so people can see. Now this is set on VOR for some reason, so I need to change it to a CDI, so press this. Okay. Turn off the parking brake. So we'll be taking off from runway 29. I gotta set the... I don't know why my CloudBot commands were not working. I don't know. But I'm not going to be bothering with that. You get to the end of the runway. Just making sure I'm on the right server. I hate to be on the wrong server. So we get to all the way to the end of the runway. Got to turn on the runway. Well, the question is what altitude am I going to have to pick? I think 4,500 feet would be good. This would get us clear over any hills before we're going to have to go to the first leg. So it has to be set like this. There's the altitude selector. $4,500 feet is perfect. I'd like to, let's see, 80% power. This should be pretty good. And looks like I'm off. to see if there's anyone else in the runway that wants to join. Gear on the SR-22 fixed. The SR-22, I believe the landing gear on the SR-22 is actually fixed. So I'm not really known about the issues of it so far. I mean, but I think it should be fine. Okay. Okay, let's set the autopilot. I mean, non-retracting. Yeah, I think the retracting gear is fixed. I believe so. I'll take the Mooney. Oh yeah, the Moon's good too. Like I said, anything that can keep up, it's fine. The Moon should be more than enough to keep up with me. Absolutely. There, Zeus. Landing gear, I phrased that poorly. No, I think the landing gear is just fine. Is that as well? It should be just fine for that. So we're getting near back to Brush Mountain. That's ahead of me. As we're heading back near Altoona, and we're over the small town of Hollidaysburg. There's such a nice landing. The scenery is quite nice here. I know it's not the Grand Canyon or anything, but it's still really nice to look at over the small towns. So, I actually want to show you the first part of my slideshow. Now, this one is actually my longest one yet. But I mean, we're covering 2 different teams today, so this one's going to be a long one. But let's talk a bit about our first stop. We'll be heading to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Now, Williamsport has been a city in Pennsylvania. It's in the county seat of Lycoming County, Pennsylvania, and it has a population of 28,186 people. In central Pennsylvania, this city is known for its cultural, financial, and commercial center of the region, and is known for its arts, food, and sports. And most famously, Williamsport, Pennsylvania is the birthplace of Little League Baseball. And South Williamsport, which is nearby the central Williamsport, is the headquarters of Little League Baseball and hosts the Little League World Series late in the summer. Now that's significant because for many people who are younger and want to get involved in baseball, Little League Baseball is the perfect avenue for younger people, like kids and stuff, to get to know the sport. Obviously, Little League is similar in many ways to baseball, but I mean, it's been readjusted because it's for children. And then Little League Baseball. So, for those that wonder about Little League Baseball, what is it exactly? Well, Little League Baseball Incorporated is actually a 501 nonprofit organization, and they organize local youth baseball and softball leagues through the United States and the rest of the world. Which isn't just the United States, but also Japan, Taiwan, Canada, and the Caribbean and the countries in the Caribbean like Puerto Rico, Venezuela, the Dominican Republic. And this is really important for baseball because obviously youth sports is a very big deal, and especially for baseball, to attract new players and talent. It was founded in 1939 by Carl Stotts as a 3-team league in Williamsport, and it was formally incorporated in 1950. And this here is a picture of Little League Baseball. This was back in the 50s. But you can definitely see here, this is what Little League Baseball looked like back in the 50s. But today it's been a much bigger sport now than it was in the 50s. So what Little League Baseball does is that they encourage volunteers to organize and operate Little League programs. And they were chartered through Little League International, through the international program. It's kind of a big deal, if you ask me. And an interesting fact is that there are over 180,000 baseball teams and over 2,600,000 competitors in Little League Baseball, which is a lot. But I mean, it's very important for the sport to grow, and it starts at the base with young players and such. Kind of a big deal. And the first waypoint we'll be going to is one of those Little League areas. While it's not full ground treated in the sim, we'll definitely fly around it before we land. There's Druid Zeus behind me. He's definitely going to catch me in the mooning. I mean, that's what Allison Johnson uses to go around the world. So, I really don't think Allison Johnson's going to struggle to catch up. Actually, I'll just lower the gear a bit. Just to slow down a little. And, oh, Goblin Zeus's name tag just disappeared for some reason. Yeah, that's kind of an issue as well. So right now we're overhead the Rfk State Forest, which is one of the many state forests in central Pennsylvania. I mean, what quite a sight for us to see as well. And that's according to my nav map, which I'll bring up. this is a bit of a long one, but this is the state forest. However, onto the northeast corner, which is right here, of my forest area, well, around this area is State College, Pennsylvania. Now, from what I know, this is where Penn State University was at, and that is home to their athletics programs, the Nittany Lions. Now, they play in a college football stadium called Beaver Stadium, and that has around 110,000 people. It's like over 100,000 people, which is a lot of people in football stadiums. This makes it nearly larger than nearly every single European football stadium. Outside of probably Camp Nou in Spain is probably the only one that can reach 100,000. Or something like that. I see you're up in the air, friend to all. I see your nameplate. And I believe State College is right around to our left. Right there is State College. Is right around this area. That is where State College is at. Won't be a state as long as I want to. No, do whatever you feel like, there, friends all. Stay as long as you need to. That's perfectly fine. I'm not the one to force things on other people. I'm in the air. Good for you there, Zeus. It's a real shame though that State College is not for grammar change. I know there's mods that you can get for Penn State that will put the football stadium, American football stadium up there. Let's see what it looks like from our cockpit. So there. Unfortunately, one of the issues I think I do have with the Sirius is there's not a lot of visibility in this cockpit. There is Penn State over by my left. There's Penn State is State College, Pennsylvania. It's got its own airport called University Park, which is Kilo Kilo uniform, Nico Victor. So that's up there. That's a single runway area. I could go faster. F-15, Eurofighter, the Vertigo. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy planes you can get. The Vertigo, it's meant to be a racing plane, so you could definitely keep up with a 339. I mean, it's wonderful out here in central Pennsylvania. It's absolutely great. Lots of great environment in central Pennsylvania. It is lovely up here. Absolutely incredible. I mean, even in the Vertigo Extreme, yeah, it is an extreme plane. Very, very much extreme. Just get a bit of our moving around the place. Now I'm going to do one more thing for the next part. Now for the next part of this slideshow stuff. Now let's talk about pitching for a bit. Now pitchers are one of the most important positions in the game. As what's the point about baseball if you don't have a pitcher? Basically, pitching is kind of an art form in Major League Baseball, and a pitcher isn't a pitcher without throwing the ball. But there's actually multiple ways to actually throw a baseball. So the first one I know of is the most well-known are the fastballs. But there's multiple types of fastballs that pitchers can actually throw to. The most famous and well-known pitch of the fastball is the classic four-seam. And basically, this is what kind of a four-seam fastball looks like. Like this. You put your hands like this for the four seams, because there's a seam. And what this does is that it's designed for velocity. The four-seam fastball is your traditional fastball. You throw this through velocity and travels the ball, and it doesn't really have much of a break. And basically, it's straight. And what this does is it uses the batter's reaction time instead of fooling him. So basically, the faster your fastball, the less time he's going to have to react. And a lot of fastballs that I know of, it's some very well-known fastballers include Aroldis Chapman, who could throw the ball 105 miles an hour. And then Bob Feller is one of the great fastball pitchers ever, and he once threw it at 107. Now, the next one is the two-seamer. Basically, this is a variation. It has the speed of a fastball, but it can also have a bit of a late break action. And that's caused by the varying pressures of the fingers. So, this is kind of a variant of a two-seam fastball. And basically, this is what it looks like. This is your two-seam fastball. So you throw it like this. And with that grip, it's a fastball, but it's got a bit of a break to it, which is really powerful. As well, the next pitch is your sinker. Now, the sinker is actually kind of a interesting pitch. So the sinker is actually a variation of the two-seam. However, instead of going from the side to side, it actually goes up and down like this. It goes into that instead of a break. And what that does is it goes down low. And this is great for getting ground balls. That, instead of having to worry about flyouts, you put it on the ground. Then we have the cutter. Most well known by pitcher Mariano Rivera. This was his signature pitch. So what this does is it breaks the ball towards the pitcher's glove hand side. So if you're a right-hander, it goes this way, and if you're a left-hander, your cutter goes this way. it's between a slider and a four-seam fastball. It's faster than a slider, but it's got more movement. And basically, I know what a cut fastball looks like. So basically, a cutter looks something like this, with a bit of a grip like this. Whoops. Sorry about that. But that is a cut fastball, and then a splitter is more of an off-speed pitch. It's a split fastball, and basically, you throw like a fastball, but it kind of drops suddenly. So instead of like a normal fastball, which is like going steady down like this, it goes boom straight down. It's actually derived of the forkball, so it's so named because the pitcher actually puts the index and middle finger on different sides. Index, so for example, index is that side, but this is this side. You throw it down like that, and that's what you get your split finger. It's really important to know these different kind of pitches because the more pitches you kind of know and master, the harder it is for hitters to kind of be predictable. You can't just play all fastballs though. The next kind of pitch that I know is very important is going to be the breaking balls. And now that's what will be the last PowerPoint until I stop. So what's the point of a breaking ball, you may ask? Well, breaking balls, if fastballs are known for going really fast and for velocity, breaking balls are known for their curve and such. Now, the most iconic is obviously the curveball. This is the preeminent breaking ball. Now, there's actually two variants, the 12-6 power curve and knuckle curve. But the traditional curveball has a characteristic grip and hand movement, and that imparts a lot of spin to the ball. And what you do with this is it pins the ball like this, and it'll give you your signature curve. And it actually, when it approaches the plate, it kind of dives. And basically, the traditional grip of a curveball should look something like this, I believe. Should look something like this. This is your traditional curveball. It's the traditional grip of it, and that allows the ball to have a bit of a curve. Which is kind of cool to think about as well. Traditional curve. The 12-6 is a variant, and instead of throwing the 11-5 motion, you throw it 12-6 variant. So instead of this to this, it would just be 12-6 like that. Now the slider is the other most iconic breaking ball. What this is, it actually breaks laterally, so it's more of a lateral curve than a vertical curve. It has less speed than a fastball, but it's much greater than a curveball, so it goes laterally. It definitely works best when you throw it away from the batter, because he'll try and actually extend it out too much. And the most well-known slider that I know of is Randy Johnson. His slider is notorious. In fact, that's why he had the second most strikeouts in Major League history. For that reason, and that reason alone. And basically, a slider should look something like this. A slider should look like this. You throw it, and it goes pretty much laterally. Another one was Steve Carlton. He was at the Phillies, was also notorious for his slider as well. A slurve is basically just, it's like a curveball as if it was a slider. So you pitch a curveball, but you throw it laterally. But it has a slower velocity than a slider. And here's one of the most interesting pitches, the screwball. This is not a pitch you see very often. This was the famous pitch used by Carl Hubble. And an interesting story about Hubble is that he used the screwball to strike out 6 straight batters in the 1934 All-Star Game. And mind you, all 6 of those strikeouts, they were from players from the Hall of Fame, like Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jamie Foxx, and a few others. He struck them all out with his screwball. So, what the screwball is actually very different. If a slider goes from this laterally, The screwball with this goes completely the opposite. So if you're a right-hander, it goes like this. Traditional slider, screwball for a right-hander. And basically vice versa if you're a left-hander. This is an extremely tricky pitch. And this is also not a pitch seen very often. And the reason that very few people use it is apparently there's a popular belief that the screwball actually puts stress in the arm. That's why you don't see the ball. But actually, the truth is it's not actually that stressful in the arm, it turns out. But in the right hands, this could be a notorious pitch. And not only was this used by Hubble, but it was used by a few other really good pitchers, including Warren Spahn has used the screwball. Juan Marichal was another Hall of Famer that used the screwball. And most recently used by Yu Darvish has also mastered the screwball. It's kind of a notorious pitch, but it's such an effective pitch if you know what you're doing. Let's check out our map here. And it turns out we're not very far from Williamsport. Not at all. Well, I'm going to go back to my showcase. Let's see who's around me. As well, Frenchwall's way back over there. I don't see you there, Goblin Zeus. It says, well, I have a baseball ball on my desk. I should try and launch it. Yeah, just be careful not to bust any walls or anything. But you could definitely get a T-ball for it. I'm behind at 180 knots. Ah, gotcha. You should definitely be more than fast enough to catch me. Plus, I'm going to be going around to see Williamsport for a bit. So it looks like we're not far from Williamsport at all, in fact. We're actually pretty close. So obviously, with all these state forests in central Pennsylvania, it's definitely well known for its hunting and such. Hunting's very well known in Pennsylvania, especially for deer season. It's quite popular for that as well. A lot of forests. Yeah, there's a lot of forests. I mean, Pennsylvania's got tons of state forests, and those are used a lot for hunting. Like I said, turkey hunting, deer hunting are very popular in Pennsylvania. We should get to Williamsport very soon. In fact, it's going along the West Branch Susquehanna River. If we can fall, we'll actually get to Williamsport soon. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my autopilot if you guys don't mind. Now hunting also, yeah. I mean, hunting's very big in Pennsylvania. Let's alter the altitude. Yeah, bow hunting. Yeah, bow hunting's very well known in that region too. You can hunt deer not just with, you can hunt deer depending on the game laws and such by the Department of Forestry and stuff. They have different seasons for including bow hunting and muzzle loading seasons as well. I know practice bow for you in the. Oh, I didn't know you could practice. I didn't know you could practice the bow in universities of France. I didn't know about that. I didn't think that would be a thing in the States. I don't think they'll ever teach you bow hunting in the States, but maybe in France they do. That's pretty cool to know. So kind of slow down here a little bit. That is cool that you keep the bow tradition alive. That is so cool. Didn't realize you would do something about bows. So we're right in Williamsport, guys. Just gotta. Not much bow hunting. So basically archery clubs. But hey, archery is kind of a cool thing. So you can definitely see here between the two cities, if you notice on my right-hand side, there's normal Williamsport, and then the side we're on now is South Williamsport. See? Now we're going to go over to the Little League fields at, which is located on the south over here. It's definitely a nice place to live around here. You got really nice, you got a cool river right in front of here, the mountains. This would definitely be a beautiful place to live in real life. Now we get into where the Little League stuff is located. It's actually not far from the airport, and the airport is what they use to drive the Little League teams in. Unfortunately, the only issue is that this has not been simulated really well in the sim. So this here is where the Little League stadiums are at, which is right here. It's for some reason it does not want to cooperate with me. Very nice place to live here. Yeah. So the Little League fields are interesting. In real life, um, the stands of the seats can actually hold 8,000 people, but right around where the planes are at, on the hills and such, you can have up to 40,000 people in the stadium, provided they seat in the outfield, which is a lot for a Little League place for Little League. And that's, which is a lot. And Little League baseball is a big deal, especially in this area. So for the airport, we just land straight ahead at runway, let me pull up my map, runway 9 is where I'm going to be making my landing for today. We put up both flaps. We should get ready at Kilo, India, Papa, Tango. Well, it should be a good landing. Get through the river. Okay, just making sure no one's going to come in my way. And I'm down. That should be a good landing, which it is. Brake. Let me get to where I need to park. I see RJRC in the chat. Nice to see you around. So gotta get my back parking spot. Slow down. I guess I park right here, and I'm gonna have to turn everything off. So we reduce the mixture, stop, and then we turn off the avionics, which is located up there. Boom, and that's it, guys. And we have made our first stop here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Guys, right in the foothills of central Pennsylvania. Pretty nice land here. Especially nice. So, I'm going to go ahead and get back to the main menu so I can restart the flight plan. It's a precautionary measure that Colonel Fork has done, and that's something I should be doing too. So we get to the intermission. Now, since we're at the intermission, I do want to go over the last thing I want to talk about, and that is going to be the change-ups. Now, change-ups are a bit different than your traditional breaking balls. Whereas breaking balls rely on break and fastballs rely on speed, the change-ups rely on fooling the batters into thinking it's one pitch, but it's really another. It relies on reducing speed and mixing it up. The changeup is the classic off-speed pitch. It looks like a fastball, but it actually goes much more slowly to the plate. It's reduced speed, and combined with the fact it has a deceptive delivery that looks like a fastball, it really is great for confusing and mixing up their timings. So if you throw this right off a fastball or a breaking ball, like, you can actually fool someone into swinging and missing. It's quite a great way to do it, and there's been a lot of changeup pitchers. Now, the circle change is a bit different. The circle change is actually a normal changeup, but it has a bit of more of a circle formation as well. And it can also be used to provide a movement like a two-seam. So it'll have a movement similar to a two-seam fastball, but it's much slower. But it doesn't have as much stress compared to a screwball. And one of the most famous people that has used that pitch is Pedro Martinez. He's very well known for his circle change. And if you want to know what kind of these pitches look like, a circle change looks something like this. Something like this. It's what a circle change looks like. You throw it, and it basically gives it a change. The most common is the straight changeup, which is held with 3 fingers. So this is kind of your traditional changeup. And there's other ones, like, for example, the forkball and all that is related to the split finger. It's held between the first 2 fingers in the thrown hand and thrown pretty hard. So it's kind of like this. You throw it, and it kind of throws really hard. Kind of really hard. You want to be a little careful about the forkball for a bit. As well. And then the last kind of pitches are kind of the junk pitches. Now, the pitches you don't see very often and kind of rare. Now, the first one is kind of the ephus. The ephus is a weird pitch. It's kind of an awkward one. Basically, you take it, and the pitch is a off-speed pitch, but to the extreme. It is a hierarchy, means you throw it way up in the air, and then it lands into the plate. It has extremely low velocity, sometimes within the 50-mile-per-hour range. That's like half the speed of a fastball. And it catches the hitter off guard, but there have been more than a few times people have actually hit balls off the ephus. It's thrown overhand, but it has a very high trajectory. Now the knuckleball, probably the most confusing pitch. Even the catchers have a hard time with this pitch. It minimizes the spin of the ball flight because most baseballs rely on spin. This doesn't have any spin. So it causes the ball to be very erratic and unpredictable. And basically what it means, in that airflow over a seam of ball, causes a change the flow of the ball. And it means the ball is kind of deflected, which makes it very difficult for batters to hit, but it's also extremely difficult for pitchers to control and catchers to catch the ball. This takes a lot of practice to master the knuckleball. However, that being said, if you were to master the knuckleball, it is absolutely terrifying if you were managed to do it. And there have been some extremely successful knuckleballers. The most recent have been R.A. Dickey, but some knuckleballers have actually played into the 40s. And that includes Hoyt Wilhelm, Charlie Ho had played there, and then and then the Hall of Fame, then the Hall of Famer Phil Necro, who are all masters of the knuckleball. And they've used it to great effect. So basically the knuckleball, it looks something like this. This is what the knuckleball kind of looks like. There's not much spin on it. It's extremely difficult to master. It can be a very difficult pitch, especially for ones who take skill. So, it looks like I'm back here in Williamsport. Officially returned back to the sim. I should see Goblin Zeus on the runway. Yep, What the heck is... Congratulations, man. You got on the runway. So, we're actually... This is going to be our longest leg. Because, according to my nav map, the next leg of the trip... First, we'll take a 59 nautical mile leg to Harrisburg. Then once we do the bypass, we will be heading another 60 nautical miles to Barnes State. So this is a 119 nautical mile trip. This will be an extremely long leg. Probably the longest leg of this entire trip so far. Of any of my stuff. So we got parking brakes already on. Let's turn on 2 switchers. Strobe. Nav lights. Check. Boost. Turn on the engine. It should be pretty quick. Retard, oil pressure. Turn the alternator on that. Avionics. And I gotta release the parking brake. And I'm going to be heading to runway 27. Now it's about fast flight. Yep. It is a fast flight there, Zeus. Got that right. Like I said, the Moon would have no trouble with it. But I think this would be a perfectly fine plane to do it. Now, for any of those who want to join in, so far, I'm at Williamsport Regional. This is Kilo Indigo Papa Tango on the East USA server. So you're all more than welcome to come in at any time. And I see friends are all here, and you're in the TBM. That is cool. Let's get to the air traffic, and I'm cleared. So for the altitude, it's not going to be 4,500 feet. I think 4,500 feet is a little high. I think 3,500 feet should be more enough because that will clear us over all the mountains. Plus, we don't need to go so high this time. So around 8% power, and I'm ready to get going. Not an inexpensive aircraft, but free with the MSFS. Yep. Well, watch out for those things on the side. Oh, careful. And I'm off. TBM 5 million, it's about $4 million. That's still expensive by normal standards, but not super expensive if you're a plane. But maybe for most standards, it is a bit expensive. Just gotta keep rising up. And, oh no, your nameplate disappeared. Great. Where did all your nameplates go? It must be some sort of server issue. So let me see if I can do some server stuff. Hold on 1 second. Everyone disappeared? Great. Yep, I had that problem too. Everyone's gone. It has to be something with servers. They gotta make them more stable, especially with console coming out. Okay, I think this should be high enough. I'm going to put on my autopilot. Should reappear shortly. Okay, I see you now, friend all, and Zeus. Good, I see you both, and now Zeus just disappeared. But I see you, friend all. Actually, I'm going to set this to 3,000 feet. Because that should get us clear over everything still. Okay, good. Yeah, I see everyone here in here. There you guys are. So let's race down to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for a bit. Let's put this series to good use. Since this is a very fast aircraft when it wants to be, it can be quite a fast plane. So basically we're in central Pennsylvania. And to our right is going to be the river. Particularly, this is the old Susquehanna River. And it's one of the longer rivers in Pennsylvania as it flows through much of the central Pennsylvania. Apparently, the Susquehanna River flows all the way down to, I believe, Philadelphia, I believe. Yeah, it flows all the way to the to Maryland. Quite a long river, if you ask me. Hey guys, I know a lot of people should be asking, but maybe I was thinking about maybe taking over for 1800 Zulu, take over for that time period. Especially with Colonel Fork not streaming Saturdays, maybe Sundays I may just take over for that time. I think that would be a good idea for me. So let's put some embed in showcase mode. Right here. So you can definitely see the river flow through the whole area. It should be relatively flat. Some of it should definitely be a nice area to fly around. So Pennsylvania's got whole loads of towns and stuff that just are all around the river. And the largest city in Pennsylvania that's around the river is Harrisburg, which will be where our first waypoint is. Now, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is the 13th largest city in Pennsylvania, with a population of around 577,940 round throughout the entire metropolitan area. And the metropolitan area in particular is the 14th. It's the fourth most populous in the state. I think the only ones more like Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and I believe, and if I believe it is, it's probably Allentown would be the next one over. Now, Allentown is known for being home to Hershey, which is the famed chocolate maker, and that's only 10 miles east of Harrisburg. When you volunteer to help to well, you still you're very grave when you volunteer to help to do every steam. Yes, you replied, laddie, we used to be very grave. Yeah, I was kidding. I never really wanted to take his place. I was just wanting to see how he would feel, but I'm not really gonna take his place. I'm not the kind of people to take people's place if I don't want to. Oh, yeah. It's also photogrammetry in the game too. Harrisburg is around there. So we can take a quick look at the city before we head on to Baltimore for a bit. Had he not got working, we would have needed you to do so. He is a wild card. That is true. Hey, I'm willing to help if something else is not happening. Someone's got to do it. I guess I might not have the problem that one time. I remember he had to do his whole musical stick, if you know what I mean. Absolutely funny. Also, Harrisburg is also known for being where the Pennsylvania Railroad was established. And more importantly as well, Harrisburg was actually known for being the 3 Mile Island accident, which was the known nuclear meltdown. That was very famous around the Harrisburg area. And some notable people from Harrisburg include Newt Gingrich. He was a U.S. representative and Speaker of the House. Charles P. Mason was there. In terms of other sports athletes, one of the most well-known athletes from the region has been, in terms of athletes, being NFL running back LaShawn McCoy. And the last one being is Robert James Miller. He was a Medal of Honor recipient during the Afghan War. He was also from Harrisburg. Definitely a very funny thing. AFK. Hershey. I'm looking at my nav map. So on my nav map, you can definitely see the Harrisburg area. So this is Harrisburg, and we actually made a waypoint here. So the reason is because we're visiting the AA affiliate of the Nationals. This is their home, which is located on one of these small islands. It's a city island, to be exact. This is like where Harrisburg's at, so we would definitely be visiting there. And if you go across to 10 miles away, there's Hershey, Pennsylvania. That's where the Hershey Chocolate Factory is at, and most well known being Hershey Park. Yes, it's one of Pennsylvania's largest and well-known theme parks. Pretty neat, if you ask me. We should get there pretty soon. Gonna load down my. I'm gonna go a little slower, taking a bit of a sightseeing. So there's the river, and that should probably lead us to Harrisburg. Yep. it's definitely a very beautiful area of Pennsylvania. Like, you got hills, forests, rivers, plains. It's got a little bit of everything, if you ask me. So, if you're all wondering what I'm wearing, this is from the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. It's got Palmetto State. It's because I actually went to see the Pelicans play, and they're basically the single A affiliate of the Cubs. Which I think is pretty cool. Just definitely do some nice cruising. Just taking a look at everything. But yeah, I love this plane. The Sirius is just such a nice plane to fly. You can go as you can get if you really want to go fast in this plane, you can definitely do it. If you want to take it more scenic, you can definitely do it. It's definitely a plane that can do almost everything you want. I think we're almost to Harrisburg, actually. We're not far from here at all. Just gotta get over the peaks for a bit. So over here, these kind of hills, these are state game lands, and that's where they usually go hunting. I use the Ryan in the Colonel 4 flight. Yeah, the Ryan's kind of a cool plane. It's a really neat vintage plane. I probably wait until it gets around the Microsoft store. But I've seen the Ryan, though. Murph was using it. I think it looked like a really fun plane. And like I said, the game needs more vintage planes. This would be the perfect simulator for vintage style planes to take off. like, I leave the airline stuff to X-Plane, but general aviation is where this game actually takes off in vintage stuff. This game has the most potential. Yeah, I do not like much airliners. Like, I'm not against the people who use airliners. I just don't think Microsoft Flight Sim is that great of a simulator for airliners. I think that's something they need to work on. And I'm not even an airline pilot, but if they work on airliners, I think that would be a really huge improvement. I think that would be a huge improvement. And we're getting over Harrisburg for a bit. So, yes, this city's actually got photogrammetry, as it's one of the cities in Pennsylvania that actually has it. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick tour around the city for a bit. It's actually photogrammetry quite nicely here. So you can definitely see a lot of the buildings in the area. They're like the arena, the buildings. And there's the ballpark here. It's actually, oh, it's got office building stuff. Quite a nice city there. It's got really nice. Definitely a very nice city in central Pennsylvania. But definitely a very nice small town. Definitely very nice and situated really nicely. It was a shame last week how many island ballparks there are. Not very many. They're located on this island. Not very many, but I would say the closest Major League ballpark maybe the City Field, but I mean that's because that's on Staten Island. That was on Long Island though. That's probably the only island ballpark I can think of is City Field in Queens, because that's tied to an island. There, front hall. So you can definitely see a bit of downtown Harrisburg. And there's the Capital City Airport. Originally I was going to use this as a stop, but I decided, actually, I want to well do this really long leg on one trip. I think that would be a really cool idea. Did you crash in the water there, Zeus? I hope not. Harrisburg is the first island park I've seen. Yep. Wait till you get to Long Island in New York. That is actually an island. Let's push it to max. And right now I'm going around 172 knots, which is really, really fast. You made it under the bridge, that's awesome. Definitely awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the next part of my slideshow, guys. So the city we're visiting first, the first major league city we are visiting, is Baltimore, Maryland. Now, Baltimore, Maryland is known as the largest and most populous city in the state of Maryland, and is actually the third most populous city in the U.S. with over 593,490 people. What's really funny is this actually is an independent city. It's not in any other district. It actually has its own district, making this one of the largest independent cities in the country. And the most popular nickname for the city is the Dream City. And Baltimore is first known for being the home of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, which is the oldest railroad in the country, and it was built in 1830 and cemented the city of Baltimore as a major transportation hub. And it's not just for railroads. Baltimore is also well known for its harbor, and that means ships and stuff and travel through ships is a very important part of the history. Baltimore is not just home to the Orioles, but it's also home to the Baltimore Ravens football team, and the Ravens are especially popular in the city. Charm City is another nickname. Yep, that's another very big nickname. Now, in terms of famous Baltimore citizens, for baseball fans, this is the birthplace of Babe Ruth. He himself was born, but also in addition to him, Edgar Allan Poe was born here, and he was definitely one of the most famous American writers, and he's most well known for his poem "The Raven," and that in turn inspired the Baltimore football team name. And Thurgood Marshall, and he was a Supreme Court justice, actually, and served on many high-profile cases during his tenure as a Supreme Court judge. Kind of a very big deal, if you ask me. Now we get to Boston, and turn outside just downtown. This here onto your left, that is Forkman Henry. Now, this was happened during the Battle of Baltimore during the 1812, and a certain man named Francis Scott Key was there at Fort McHenry, and he actually was so inspired by the battle, he actually wrote America's national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. And eventually, in 1931, it became the national anthem of the United States. And then the other iconic landmark in Baltimore is the Closet Lexington Market, one of the oldest markets running in the United States. And you can get some iconic food items and other stuff in the market as well. Definitely very famous, and we could definitely keep a look at it. In fact, one of the waypoints during our flight for the final leg, we'll be taking a quick flight over Forkman Henry for a bit. Now, baseball's history in Baltimore is actually quite long, actually. After all, this is the birthplace of Babe Ruth. In 1882, professional baseball came to the city of Baltimore as the Baltimore Orioles. But they were part of the American Association from 1882 to 1891, and they joined the National League in 1892 until they were contracted out of the league for some unknown reason in 1899. And the funny thing was about those original Orioles, they were actually among some of the most storied teams in baseball history. During that time of the National League, they won 3 pennants in a row from 1894 to 1896, and they had 6 Hall of Famers. One of them include Tug McGraw, one of the great managers of his era, and he was most well known as a member of the San Francisco Giants. And Hanson, actually, funnily enough. They actually had 6 Hall of Famers, and those Hall of Famers included Ned Halen, who was the father of modern baseball, John McGraw, who famously became a player and manager, Huey Jennings, Willie Keeler, Joe Kelly, and Joe McGinney are all Hall of Famers associated for the original Orioles. Then, when the American League was founded, they reorganized the Orioles franchise in the American League. However, they only went 2 seasons of Baltimore until they were relocated to New York. And that team eventually became known today as the New York Yankees. So if you wonder how baseball managed to come back to Baltimore, well, basically as the story went, the Baltimore Orioles were actually established back in 1901. A different franchise came back to Baltimore. Hold on one second. I just flew over the 3 Miles Island, the famous nuclear plant. Yep. Hope you guys didn't get any radiation there, Zeus. Then again, it's not Chernobyl. Wait, I gotta check on my fuel. Okay, my fuel's good. So the current franchise, Baltimore, was established in 1901 as the St. Louis Browns and came to the city of Baltimore in 1954. Now, the reason... So yeah, St. Louis used to have 2 teams, but they relocated in 1954. The team itself is named after the state bird, the Baltimore Oriole, which is a songbird. And the team colors are orange and black. And a well-known nickname for the Orioles are the O's, which is why I named them in the title O's. Now they currently play at Oriole Park in Camden Yards, which they have been there since 1992. This was actually a very unique ballpark at the time, because unlike other Major League ballparks, which were multi-purpose stadiums, this one was designed for baseball, and inspired a lot of other ballparks, including PNC Park in Pittsburgh, Oriole Park in San Francisco, and others. However, they previously played at Memorial Stadium, and that stadium was also home to the Baltimore Colts and the Baltimore Ravens. And they played there from 54 to 91. They had 3 World Series championships in 1966, 1970, and 83, 7 American League pennants, and 9 AL East division titles. They currently are owned by Peter Angelos and have a win-loss record of 8,793 wins to 9,763 losses, which equate to a 47.4% win-loss ratio. Now, the origin story for the Orioles actually came around in 1901 as the Milwaukee Brewers, but they only spent 1 year in Milwaukee, so they relocated to St. Louis as the Browns. And they actually enjoyed some success back in the 1920s behind the bat of famed hitter George Sisler. However, the fortunes of the team really declined from then on, and they only won 1 pennant between the 1920s and 53 in 1944, and that was only because of World War II happened, and they had to win with replacement players, because many of the best players at the time, like Ted Williams and such, they had to serve in war due to the draft. In 1953, the St. Louis Browns couldn't even afford to get their stadium upkeep, And due to all this, the owner, Bill Veeck, actually sold it to the Cardinals. And originally he wanted to move back to Milwaukee, but instead he sold his franchise to a partnership of Baltimore businessmen, and they moved the team back to move the Browns to Baltimore. And this brings us to one of the players that helped build it, Paul Richards. Paul Richards is the manager in the picture. So in their first home opener in Memorial Stadium, they actually had a solid crowd of 46,000, and they beat the White Sox. However, 54 was not such a kind season for the Orioles, as they had 100 losses, but they barely avoided the cellar, so at least that's something. However, the long-term success of Baltimore was actually established in 1950, at September 14th of 54, when they hired a man named Paul Richards to become the manager and GM. And he laid down the foundations for what would be years later called the Oriole Way. And they had several major stars in there, including Boog Powell, Brooks Robinson, and all those players end up being a major deal for Baltimore's success. And then we would get to, in 1964, the Birds, yes, I said the Birds because that's an art nickname, powered by Hank Bauer in his first year managing the club, were involved in a pennant race. However, they managed to end up third place, unfortunately, against the Yankees and White Sox. However, things started to really turn in 65. They traded their pitcher, Milt Pappas, and several other players to the Reds to get Frank Robinson, who was already a star for the Reds, and this ended up actually benefiting the Orioles immensely. Frank Robinson was, to me, the final piece for the Orioles' success of the 60s and 70s. In addition to this, in the 60s, the Orioles farmed to produce a large number of high-quality players and coaches. In fact, those players laid the foundations for over 2 decades of success, all the way from 1968 to 1985. 18 consecutive winning seasons. That's why it's called the Orioles Way. In fact, the Orioles started winning that deal in 1966 as Frank Robinson won the Triple Crown Award, which meant he led the league in average home runs and RBI. In the World Series, the Orioles actually won their first championship. They swept the Dodgers and Sandy Koufax. Now, the pitcher on the right was actually one of their stars, Boog Powell, and he was a major slugger during the time in Baltimore as well. They continued to have success. In 69, unfortunately, they didn't make it they actually made the World Series, but they didn't actually win the World Series. They got absolutely shocked by the Mets that year. And I'll talk about the 69 Mets because that team was one of the most unlikely teams to ever win the World Series that year. Like, no one's expecting. However, 1970, they came back with a vengeance in the 1970s. Boog Powell was the MVP, and they won 108 games that year. They absolutely crushed the Twins in the ALCS, and they dismantled the Reds' big red machine. Which is something I already mentioned when we got to Cincinnati, of course. They continued to have more success in 1971, but they lost the World Series to the Pirates. But they continued to have such a strong 1970s, though. In 83, a different manager, Altobelli, was a new manager for the team, and he led them to 98 wins. And a division title thanks to the MVP of that year, Cal Ripken Jr., another Baltimore legend. And we'll get to him for a bit. The Orioles defeated the Chicago White Sox in the ALCS, and then after they beat them to the ALCS, they actually won the World Series in 5 games by defeating the Phillies that year, and that is currently their most recent championship. Fred Dole says, Boog Powell had a proper beef pit. Oh yeah, Boog's Barbecue. Beef pit is a very well-known thing in Baltimore. I'll get to Baltimore stuff for a bit. During their most productive years in only World Series championship, the Orioles had 3 players named MVP, and their pitching staff was amazing. They had 4 pitchers winning 6 Cy Young awards. Oh, and something else about the 71 team as well that I didn't get a chance to feature in the PowerPoint. The 71 team was stacked with some of the best pitching seasons ever. 4 pitchers of that year won 20 games. Yes, 20. Like, it's tough enough for one pitcher to win 20 games. Just imagine 4 of them. It is just such an unlikely thing to have occur. It really is. However, after winning the 83 World Series, the Orioles continue to struggle, continue to start to decline, and as the Orioles said goodbye to Memorial Stadium, they moved to Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and it became a really amazing ballpark, and it completely inspired other retro-style ballparks. In 1996, Cal Ripken actually broke Luke Gehrig's consecutive game streak of 2,130 games in a nationally televised game on September 6. And the Orioles made it to the playoffs for the first time in many years, but they lost to the Yankees in the ALCS. And this picture here, that is actually taken from the game where Cal Ripken actually broke that streak. It's quite a major moment. The Ironman record, yep. Yep, you got that. 97 that year, when they made it back, 97, they went back to the ALCS as well, but they lost as well. Poor Orioles. The 2000s was not a kind decade for the Orioles. They were constantly in the bottom of the American League East standings. However, 2012 was they started to finally turn things around. They actually went second place in the American Leagues, but they claimed one of the wildcard spots, only to lose to in the ALDS. In 2013, they were in the lower tiers, but in 2014, they claimed the division title for the first time since 1997 with the win against Toronto, and they made it back for the playoffs for the second time in 3 years. However, and they even made it to the American League Championship Series, but they were knocked out by the Royals. But the 2014 Orioles were quite good. In 2016, they actually made it to the playoffs. This is their most recent appearance, and they lost to the Blue Jays in the wild card game as well. And ever since, though, the Orioles have been trying to rebuild. I mean, it's hard to keep up with the American League being such a tough division. And then we get to the legends for the Orioles. The first one I want to mention is Frank Robinson. He was born on August 31st, 1935, and he developed himself as one of the best sluggers of his era and played for 21 seasons in the major leagues from 1956 to 76. He was already an amazing star for the Reds, but he cemented himself as a Hall of Famer when he was traded to Baltimore. He actually had a .294 batting average with 2,943 hits and 586 home runs. He was also a 14-time All-Star and was both a National League and American League MVP. One of only a few players actually done that, and he won the Triple Crown back in 1966. And another thing to know about him was he actually was a manager too. He managed the Cleveland Indians, San Francisco Giants, and the Montreal Expos / Washington Nationals. So he actually had a long career with baseball. And then, before his death in 2019, he actually served various executive positions for the Major Leagues before his death, after his management career was over. So he was around Major League Baseball for a long time. Then we get to Brooks Robinson, the other well-known Robinson. Now, Brooks spent all 23 seasons of his career with Baltimore. In fact, this is actually tied with Carl Yastrzemski for the longest career with one team, which is pretty crazy. Offensively, he wasn't really the most impressive player. He only hit .267 with 268 home runs and 2,800 hits, which isn't really impressive offensively. Like, those are decent stats. But the one thing that really set Brooks Robinson as a player is those Gold Gloves. 16 of them. From 1960 to 1975, those were all consecutive. In fact, his Gold Gloves were tied second with another player, Jim Katt, at all time at any position. The only one with more was Greg Maddux with 18. Also, he was an 18-time All-Star, and he was the AL MVP of 1964. And the most interesting fact is that he's considered by many to be the best defensive third baseman, and that is what led to his nickname, the Human Vacuum Cleaner. But I mean, if you want to defend that third baseman line, yeah, you want a guy like Brooks defend it. Then we get to Jim Palmer for a bit. He is one of the best, he's definitely the best pitcher in Orioles history, and he was the winningest pitcher of the 1970s. And in 8 different seasons, he's also won at least 20 games, which is very impressive. He was a 6-time All-Star for the Orioles. He won 3 World Series with the team, all 3 of them, and he has 3 American League Cy Young Awards. In addition to this, as well, he was a 4-time Gold Glover, and has been 3 times been the American League wins leader. And what makes him extremely impressive was he not only had a really solid win-loss record as well, his ERA was 2.86, which was the 3rd lowest currently of any player in the live ball era. And that's where balls were taken out of the ballpark, which that is extremely impressive. And after his playing career, he's worked as a color commentator of many MLB games for ABC and ESPN as well. And the final legend I want to mention is Cal Ripken Jr. Probably the best player in Orioles history, in my opinion. He played all 21 seasons as an Oriole from 1981 to 2001, and he might just be probably the best shortstop. He hit .276 with over 3,184 hits and 431 home runs. He appeared in a whopping 19 All-Star games, which is a lot for a shortstop, was twice the American League MVP, and he had 8 Silver Slugger awards for Ripken. However, the thing that really set Cal Ripken's record apart is that he is most well known for playing lots of games. In fact, he has the most consecutive games of any player in Major League history. From May 30th, 1982 to September 19th, 1998, which is a total of 9,556 games, he played 2,632 consecutive games. And he's the member of MLB's All-Century team. And because of Cal Ripken's success, he inspired future power-hitting shortstops that are very popular within the league. Quite a nice success story for him as well. But I think we just passed the airport, so I'm actually going to go ahead and turn the slideshow off. I think I just went past the airport, but that actually works out to my favor. We're going to go ahead and do this. And we're going to land on runway 33. So this actually works into my favor, it turns out. We're going to lower the trim a bit. Please mention Cal's father. Oh, yes. Yeah, Cal's father was a coach. He was one of the few father and son coaches as well. In fact, it's one of the few times Cal Ripken's dad actually played for the Orioles too as a coach. Yeah, it's hard to forget Cal Ripken's father was a very well-known coach. It's just like when Ken Griffith Jr. and his father played for the same team, the Mariners. Yep, I will mention about Cal Ripken's father. Cal Ripken's father was a longtime coach for the team and a mentor. Hey, Viper Strike, saw your stream and popped by to say hey. Hey, you're always more than welcome there, Foxtrot. You're always more than welcome, anytime. So we're going to make the landing here. I think I might make it a little high. Gotta land first. I got the land, and I'm down. And I'm down. Let me just go ahead and park. Let me pull up my camera. Let's put the showcase. And I think here's front all. I think he's about to land. And he's down, and now we just gotta see if, let's see if Goblin Zeus is ready to land. Oh, he's landing on the other side. Let's get Drew Zeus here. And Druid Zeus is down. He's going to be down very soon. Come on. Got this. And you're down, Goblin Zeus. Wonderful job. That was really smooth. So guys, we are at Martin State. So Martin State is actually the general aviation hub area of the city of Baltimore. If you want to get near the city of Baltimore, this is probably when you go as well. Alright, so if you guys don't mind, I'm actually going to restart the sim. And I'm going to go into a different plane this time. As well. I gotta pick a different plane for the last leg of the flight. If you don't mind. So there is one more thing I do want to show you before I pick the planes as well. And you know, food's gonna come up. Now, this is Baltimore food. Now, obviously, the left is something that is did my stream just stop? What? Okay, I thought my stream stopped. Okay, Billy Ripken played second base. Yep, all three family members in the same field. Yep, the Ripken family very well gifted for baseball there, friends all. Good point. Hey, Kozaki Flyer, it's good to see you, man. I'm watching your stream today. I got the P40 today. Oh, that's nice. I hope the P40 is really good. We could do it also. Ah, food, yes. The one on the left. This is synonymous with Maryland. Crab cakes. Now, crabs has historically been extremely popular for Maryland. It's historically been very popular in the region. You get all sorts of different ways to make crab, but if you want to do the true Maryland way of doing stuff, you definitely want to do crab cakes. Those are very synonymous. Also, another thing that the city is known for is pit beef. And right here and to the right is something that they serve in Baltimore. It's called, it's got like barbecue stuff. That's because it's quite popular here. And that's what they made for Boo's Barbecue as well. Well, But I'm actually going to take a different plane, as you can see right here. I'm taking the Shock Ultra. This is actually from Premium Deluxe. So I'll be taking that plane with me today. I'm going to pick my parking. Ramp 21. Maryland's, yeah, it's the most. I don't know about that because, for me at least, Louisville, Kentucky's the most northernmost southern city. I thought Louisville usually is because it's right around the border of Indiana, and Kentucky has historically been a swing state. So south of the Mason-Dixon line. Okay, that's fair enough. Southern food is very popular as well. Now we get to the next thing about this. So the first place we'll be visiting as well is Memorial Stadium. We're going to be at the site. Memorial Stadium was actually a multi-purpose stadium that was actually opened in 1949. This was the home for the Orioles from 54 to 91. In addition to this, this stadium was also home to the beloved Baltimore Colts. And Baltimore fans still despise the team, Robert Irsay, for moving the team out of Baltimore to Indianapolis. They still hate him for that, but they made up for it by getting the Baltimore Ravens, and they have been very successful ever since. The stadium has a capacity of 53,371, and like other stadiums of that type, the dimensions are quite symmetrical as well. Which you can see here. You definitely got some nice view of the Baltimore neighborhoods as well. And one of the interesting things about this stadium is actually it's one of the few venues in the U.S. to host not just a World Series, but it can also host an MLB All-Star game in an NFL championship game, which is what it was before the Super Bowl ever existed. Then the next thing about Baltimore as well, we get to Oriole Park. This is their current ballpark. This was opened back in '92 and inspired other Major League ballparks of the retro type. It was constructed at a cost of $110 million back in 1992, and if you want to look for today's money, that is $203 million. The capacity of the stadium is around 45,000, and one of the things that really set this ballpark apart from others at the time was its asymmetrical dimensions. 333 in left field, 364 at left center, 410 at center, 373 in right center field, and 318 at right field. But the right field wall was about 24 feet high. In right field, there's one thing that really sets it is the former Baltimore and Ohio Railroad warehouse. Originally, they were supposed to tear down the warehouse, but they never did, and I'm kind of glad they didn't. And that warehouse now contains offices, service spaces, and a private club. And between those two areas is Utah Street. And spectators can walk around the entire street as long as they have a ticket. They can walk on the street and view the game. And one of the more interesting facts about Camden Yards, this was the only ballpark it's the first ballpark to host a game with no spectators. That actually happened in 2015 due to the death of Freddie Gray. And it caused such bad unrest that they had to actually play the game with empty spectators. It's quite odd. Spelled Utah. Yeah, it spells Utah. That's actually how the street was named. So let's get back to the in-game simulator. This is the Shock Ultra. This is a really modified bush plane. This is the most extreme bush plane you can actually fly in the base game of the sim. It's basically take a Savage Cub and make this even lighter. But this is actually a really simple plane to start. We test brakes. We turn on the choke. Here's our little choke. It's a really simple bare bones plane, but I mean it works really well. We have to close the throttle, so we pulled it. Okay, turn on the fuel pump. Boom. We turn on the master switch right here. Once we do that, We then turn on the ignition switches. So there's actually 2 switches. You turn, that's Magneto 1, Magneto 2. You get that completed. It's actually surprisingly a pretty simple plane to start off. Hold. Okay, doing good. We got adjusted around 1600 RPM. I think that's pretty good. Check the engine gauges. I think everything's normal. That's good. Then after we start, we hold, turn off the choke. We turn on the avionics, which is right here. That turns our avionics stuff right here. This plane, is it Flight 17? No, this is actually in the Premium Deluxe game. There, Goblin Zeus. Now, if you don't have it, you can easily run the Savage Cup. The reason is because if you want to notice on the map, this one's going to be a bit of a longer leg than using the Aero Light, and I think it's a little far to use the Aero Light for this one, so I thought the Shock Ultra would be a great fit. Now the question is now I need to get there. I need to go to traffic control, turn around. I'm going to remain in pattern turn. So I will be going off on runway 33. You can definitely use the Monster Gravel on all the areas. Like, feel free to use any bush plane. Feel free to. Just as long as anything to keep up with this is perfectly good. Are all the premium points for later purchase in the marketplace? Yep. That's correct from for all. If it also comes with more premium airports. Like, for example, you get airports for O'Hare, Dubai, Cairo International is one of them. You get more deluxe stuff. San Francisco International. But I wanted to show different kinds of planes that are previously available from Asobo and not just third-party stuff. I want to do something a bit different. So I wanted to bring this plane. It's something that can go as low as an ultralight if it wants aerolight, but it's something that I think would be perfectly fun. So we're gonna have to go through the runway. But the beauty of this plane is it does not need much of a runway to take off and land. This is the ultimate bush plane, that base game bush plane you can get. In fact, according to the official owner book manual, this thing only needs 90 feet of runway to take off with flaps and such. So this is the perfect bush plane for this trip. It's perfect for it. Incredible. Just going a little slow. This would be a long way to the runway. Now, one of the disadvantages with the tailgrider is definitely forward visibility when you're taking off on the runway. So that's why you do not have much visibility. However, the advantage of a tailgrider is it's much lighter than a traditional tricycle wheel. It's much lighter, which makes this perfect for land on rough runways. It's perfect for it. Gotta take a sip. Boom, boom, boom. So we got runway So if you guys want to know where I'm spawned, I'm on KMTN, which is Martin State Airport, and I'm on the East USA server, so. Okay. Trying to parking brake. To the tower. Request VFR from the tower. Cleared for runway takeoff 33. Now here's the brilliant part. Do this. Your max. And I'm already off. Oh, I'm already taken off. I'm already... KMTN. It's actually KMTN Ver Foxtrot. Yeah, this is the Shock Ultra. If you want to think about a bush plane, this is definitely one you want to get. But I have to hand fly this thing. There you go. I got the route. Yeah, the Gravels do it too, but the Gravel aircraft is even more overpowered than this. Like, the Gravel Savage, the Savage Carbon is just straight up OP. Like, but to be fair, it's not even unrealistic because some people actually make their Cubs that powerful. Absolutely incredible aircraft. So we're actually going to go to our first destination here. I'm taking a 284 degree heading. As well, there's quite a few people here. I mean, we're getting near Washington, D.C. So we'll be heading to the site of Oriole Stadium first. As well. Someone constructed the Savage Gravel for real. Dude, that would be a sick plane. Like I said, I love the bush planes because you're not restricted to taking them anywhere. Like, this sim to me is a bush pilot's dream. It's a crazy thing to do, especially. Oh, you know what I think they need, Zeus? They need the Draco. The Draco with the ginormous wheels. Stupidly powerful thing. They definitely need that. Gotta get there a little faster. Press the brakes, get there quicker. We're getting pretty close. According to my nav map, we're getting close to our first waypoint. And we have some very unique areas in the city. So we're overlooking a few of the neighborhoods in the region. The park to my northwest, that is Clifton Park. That's a golf course. We should be getting there really soon. Definitely some very interesting areas. There is the park. So we're not far from here, and I think we're around here. This is Baltimore City College, is located over here. That's the college, and I think we're here actually. I gotta bail out. Have a great stream and enjoy that Shock Ultra. It's a good one. Hey, it's good to see you there, Foxtrot. You're always more than welcome to join me anytime. And there is Memorial Stadium down over here. There is Memorial Stadium built over here. Right below. So yes, this was built right here in Waverly. Just imagine on NFL game days on Sundays, just watching the Baltimore Colts. Definitely, what a great view. Yep. Alright, let's go to... Wow, you restored the now raised Memorial Stadium. Yep, this actually used to be abandoned when the Colts moved. But between the Orioles moving out, this stadium was left abandoned. They had to actually do it for the Ravens for the first 2 seasons. Yep. They actually kept it as a park and such. Now we're going to be heading to downtown Baltimore for a bit. Now, we're going to be heading there for a bit. Now we're getting to Baltimore, Maryland, the Dream City itself. We restored the natural, yep, right here. But yeah, this is the downtown city of Baltimore. Definitely quite nice in the sim as well. But before we head to Oriole Park, we're actually going to go to the Inner Harbor of Baltimore. This is a very famous landmark in the city of Baltimore, is the harbor. Definitely the Baltimore Inner Harbor. Definitely. It's home to the National Aquarium area. Right over here. The National Aquarium's down here. Just past it. Definitely a very nice area. If I had the icon, I could have landed on the harbor. That would be a really cool place to land. And then we get to Oriole Park, and that's to our left. There, look out for the buildings. There is the old B&O warehouse. That's located right here. There is the Baltimore Baseball Museum is located right here, that building over there. And here is Orioles Park. Here, there is Orioles Park Cannon Yards. And then there's that big old giant B&O warehouse. Quite a really nice idea to keep it there. In fact, at one point, during the 1993 Home Run Derby, Ken Griffith Jr. actually hit a ball off the warehouse. And in fact, this was the only time that has happened now and since that this has happened. Definitely very nice to catch a game. And then there's Utah Street, which is right between the two. Definitely as well. The warehouse, yep, there's that big giant warehouse. It's massive. That thing's longer than the ballpark. That's how big it is. It's that big giant warehouse. Now, this is actually the most recent. This is actually the home of the Ravens in front of us. M&T Bank Stadium, home of the Ravens. The big old Baltimore Ravens. Say nevermore. That stadium is known as the house that Ray Lewis built, after the famous linebacker. Yep, purple seats because the Ravens, their colors are purple and black. You got that one correct. There's the American Visionary Museum on the harbor. We're getting to the Riverside neighborhood. Now we're going to get to our final waypoint. We're going to act in Baltimore, and that's going to be Forkman Henry. We should be getting there pretty soon. Like I said, I like picking the shock altar just because it's fast. You can get to the places where you want to go, but still go slow enough you can take good screenshots. On the mascot, your on-field mascots are Edgar Allan Poe. Yep, named after the famous writer, the famous poet. And there it is in front of us. That is Forkman Henry, the birthplace of the Star-Spangled Banner. This was part of Francis Scott Key's poem. And yes, this is an in-game POI, by the way, too. Oh, I heard about that, Goblins. It better not be a CTD. That would suck. There it is. There's all the cannons. There's the cannons of the place. Really, really nice place. Definitely very nice to see. They did a great job with the fort. The fort looks wonderful. And then it's time for me to get to Washington, D.C. Get to D.C. Gotta set the trend to make my plane a bit more stable. So for Washington, D.C. for a bit, let's get to the PowerPoint about the other city we're going to be visiting tonight. So Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States and is located on the banks of the Potomac River. Now the city itself is actually named after America's first president, George Washington, who, by the way, before his career as president, George Washington was the general of the American Revolutionary Army during the American Revolution. And famously, he was actually discarded by the British and overlooked, and that ended up not being such a great thing for the British. Some of the many landmarks of DC include the Lincoln Memorial, which is an in-game POI, the National Museum of History, the world's most visited natural history museum, the National Air and Space Museum. This was the famous museum that houses the Charles Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis, and the National Archives, which kept records of all sorts of famous documents in the United States. Itself. Now, baseball's got quite a bit of a long history in the nation's capital. From 1872 to 1899, there have been 9 different baseball teams in different variations in the nation's capital. Now, the first major MLB team in the city was the Washington Senators. Now, the original Senators played from 1901 to 1960, and even have won a World Series in 1924 on the amazing pitching of Walter Johnson and the hitting of Joe Cronin. However, eventually they weren't so lucky after 24. In fact, there was a very famous saying, "First in war, first in peace, but last in the American League East." That has been a saying that's very much true, unfortunately. And eventually their poor luck led them to be relocated in 1961, and they moved to Minneapolis, and they became the Twins. And moving again to Minnesota. Now, there was a second Senators team. They were actually an expansion team in 1961, but they were horrible. Their fertility was so bad, they actually had to relocate to Arlington, Texas, and they become the Texas Rangers. So right here we saw an old picture of the old original Senators. as well. Sorry, CTD. Oh no. No, that sucks. So the next part of this is going to be the current team. The Washington Nationals are the most recent team in the city of Washington. The franchise itself was actually established back in 1961 as the Montreal Expos. And yes, I'm going to cover them separately when I go to Montreal. I'll give them their own story and such. But they have been relocated to Washington, D.C. in 2005. And they were named after the original Nationals. In fact, their team colors are red, white, and blue, which should be obvious. This is the nation's capital. It's the capital of the United States. I mean, why would you not want to cover your team red, white, and blue? Their mascot is Screech, and he's a bald eagle, actually, which is the picture right here. A cute bald eagle mascot. They currently play at Nationals Park, and they played there since 2008. And previously, the Nationals played at Rfk Stadium, named after Robert F. Kennedy. Now, the Nationals' history was kind of interesting. In Washington, in their first 3 seasons, they finished 4th or last in the NL East, and by 2008, they moved to Nationals Park. However, since they moved to Nationals Park, they began building the foundations of a contender by drafting 2 major draft picks, Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper becoming an absolute superstar. And on September 20th, 2012, the Nationals beat the Dodgers to clinch the playoffs and become the first Washington-based baseball team to advance to the postseason in 79 years. Yeah, that probably tells you the scope on how badly baseball in DC has been really struggling. Has really struggled. However, and later that year they even clinched the NL East division, and even got the best record in baseball at 1964, but they did not make it past the NLDS. In 2015, the Nationals achieved the 2nd place in the NL East, but they failed to make the playoffs despite standout performances from Bryce Harper and Max Scherzer, who they got from Detroit that year. In 2016 and 2017, they won the NL East division, but they couldn't, for some reason, get past the NLDS, and next year they failed to make the postseason. However, 2019 ended up being an incredibly interesting year. The Nationals started the season 19-31, with the World Series odds to be around 1.5%. Then they posted an incredible 74-3 record to finish the season, giving them an overall record of 93 wins to 69 losses, and they got to the wild card game. And they actually beat the Brewers there. And then once they get that, they actually managed to somehow get past the NLDS by beating the Dodgers and won the pennant over the Cardinals, which makes the city of Washington appear in their first World Series since 1933. And unbelievably, they also beat the Houston Astros that year, who 2 years earlier won the World Series, to give the franchise their very first championship and the city's first title since 1924. And at the time, the city of Washington hadn't won a championship in 95 years. Like, that city's had a lot of bad luck with baseball. But that picture right there is from the 2019 World Series. Definitely a historic moment for all Washington baseball fans. Definitely a very historic moment. That's for sure. Now, despite being a young franchise, the Nationals actually had quite a few successful players over the years. First one is being Ryan Zimmerman. Now, Ryan Zimmerman was actually their very first draft pick from the Nationals since their relocation, and he's established himself as the longest tenured player on the team. In fact, he's been playing from 2005 to actually present. That means he's still playing even to this day. And he currently has a .279 batting average with 1,813 hits and 276 home runs. Zimmerman is also known for being a two-time All-Star, a two-time Silver Slugger, and a Gold Glove winner as well. And here's a fun fact about Zimmerman. He's actually played college ball at the University of Virginia at Charlottesville. Quite an interesting fact, if you ask for me myself. The next major player is Bryce Harper. He was drafted first in the 2010 draft, and he proved himself to be the first superstar in DC since Joe Cronin and Walter Johnson. During his time in Washington, Bryce Harper hit .279 with 184 home runs himself and 521 RBIs. He was also a six-time All-Star for the Nationals and won the 2015 NL MVP. However, he's no longer with the Nationals. In fact, he's with the Phillies now. And he left them and he went to Philly with a 10-year, get this, $330 million contract. The second richest contract so far in North American sports, only beaten out by Mike Trout, which is a lot of money. That means he gets paid $33 million a year for 10 years. That's just a lot of money. And then we get to their most recent star, Max Scherzer. Now, Scherzer is really interesting for the fact that Scherzer has been one of the best pitchers in franchise history, if not the best pitcher. Scherzer has been and they acquired him from Detroit, and that ended up being a really good thing for the team. Scherzer has been a 7-time All-Star currently, a 3-time Cy Young Award winner, which is great, and he was 4 times the win leader in Major League Baseball. His current career record so far, he's won 180 games to 97 losses. He has an ERA of 3.18 and has over 2,888 strikeouts. And I think this season he could definitely get to 3,000, absolutely. He's also had 20 strikeouts in one game, which that's tied with the most of any player in Major League Baseball. And he's had 250 strikeouts for 5 straight seasons, which is a lot of strikeouts as well. Well, I'm stuttering really bad. Actually, if you guys don't mind, I'm probably going to exit out for a sec because I'm having a lot of stutter issues. I'm going to take off of a different airport. I'm having a lot of stutter issues. Washington, D.C. this time is going to be busy, so maybe I'll change the servers. Let's change it to North Europe. There we go. That should be fixed. I had to change servers to North Europe. That's why I always have North Europe as a backup. Those are all tied Major League records. Finally, Max Scherzer has actually thrown 2 no-hitters in 2015, which makes him only one of 5 players to actually do so. Getting 1 no-hitter a season is a lot. In fact, the most recent been Nolan Ryan back in '73, and Nolan Ryan is kind of a flamethrower. So that does not surprise me in the lightest. And in the second no-hitter of that game, he actually had 17 strikeouts, the most of any no-hitter. He had 17. The dude's a strikeout machine. He just knows how to get tons of strikeouts. Actually, you know what? Since I'm having such bad starter issues, I'm going to reload at a different airport. I don't like doing something I don't want to do. I'm having some major starter issues, so I'm actually going to the closest airport to Washington, D.C. I'm going to actually take off from Kilo Charlie Golf Sierra. That's College Park. If I take off from there, it would make the journey significantly easier. I'm sorry about that. So actually, during this intermission, I will want to talk about one final thing before the stream. So I'm actually going to reload back at Kilo Charlie Golf Sierra. That's College Park. I'm going to be taking off from there. Once I get the whole sim loaded up. So the first thing I want to talk about here, while I get prepared to load in, this is Griffith Stadium. Now, this was the home of the original Washington Senators until 1960. This was opened back in 1911, and this also hosted the Washington football team from 1937 to 1960. And yes, I said Washington football team because the original name for the team is kind of racially sensitive. I guess it could call them the Skins, but I mean, but it's just racially insensitive because they had to do there was a whole massive name change controversy, and the team finally changed the name. I'm hoping to get a more fitting name for the football team that's probably more sensitive, if you ask me. Now, the right field fin, now the dimensions for the ball, it had a 20,000 seat capacity, which made it quite small. And the dimensions are really crazy. It was 388 at left field, 360 in left center. Yes, the left center is more shallow than the actual left field. Then it was 421 feet in center field, which was pretty deep, 370 feet in right center field, and 321 feet in right field. But right field was 30 feet tall. Combine that with that center field fencing, it was very difficult to hit home runs at the park. And there was also a downward slope between home and first base, and apparently this was originally built because to help the Washington Senator runners, who were quite a bit slow. So they obviously have had stuff like this. And a fun fact, and currently right now, the Howard University Hospital was built on the site of the former stadium itself. And one of the fun facts about the stadium itself is that every president from William F. Taft to John F. Kennedy has thrown a pitch here. In fact, and even the team itself constructed a special area at first base for the presidents to sit. So that's kind of the old ballpark. It's quite an interesting old stadium, that's for sure. Then they played at Rfk Stadium. This is just basically like every other cookie cutter. This was opened in 1961 as part of the expansion Senators, and also the home for the Washington football team, and also DC United as well. And basically the ballpark has really symmetrical dimensions, but I mean, it's a cookie cutter. There's not much history to talk about for the place. It's like, and finally, the last ballpark I'm going to talk about, and the last thing for the slideshow, is Nationals Park. This is the most recent of stadiums. This is their newest ballpark. This was actually opened back in 2008. It is the current ballpark for the team, and it had a construction cost of $693 million. It has a capacity around 41,000, and the dimensions of the ballpark consist of a 337-foot left field, 377-foot left center, 402-foot center field, 370-foot right center field, and that was 14-foot high due to the out-of-town scoreboard, and 335 feet in right field. Now, there are some pretty interesting features. One of them is a grove of cherry blossom trees beyond the left field bleachers, and that's because Washington, D.C. has a lot of these Japanese cherry blossoms. They were planted throughout the city, and those are quite popular. As well. Also, in addition to this, there's also a 14-foot tall out-of-town scoreboard, and basically give you stats, give you team scores from around the league. That's kind of what an out-of-town scoreboard is, and not a digital. Some of it has to be, some of them are manually operated, like the one in Wrigley Field is manually operated. And in addition, in some seats in the upper deck, you can actually see views of the U.S. Capitol building, which is pretty neat. And in addition to hosting the 2018 MLB All-Star Game, this stadium has actually hosted an ice hockey game, the 2015 Winter Classic with the Washington Capitals hockey team. They actually had to turn this into an ice hockey rink, for one game at least. Frenzel actually has said that cherry trees around Jefferson Memorial are a gift from Japan. Yep, that actually explains how they got there. So let me load back in. Let me load in from College Park. So this is departure. Cherries, springtime cherry blossoms. Festival is a spring celebration every year. Wow, that's cool. I didn't know about that. That's cool. I'm just going to get loaded into the sim first. It's going to take me a bit to load back in. Just waiting for this thing to load. Okay, I'm finally here. Sorry about that. So actually, the thing about College Park that I know of is that it's actually been the nation's oldest continuing operating airport. And it's built right in College Park. That's the home of the University of Maryland. That's another thing, too, about the area. Like I said, I'm not giving up on this. I want to keep going. Flying around like this, take advantage of the environment. Got a truck through. So we're getting to the nation's capital. The nation's capital is right in front of us, actually. Just get there really fast. Part of me really wishes Washington got the photogrammetry treatment. It is the nation's capital. I wish it would have got the full photogrammetry. And I think that's what server I'm on. Friends of all, I could see you on the map. I'm North Europe, and the reason I picked I'm on North Europe, and that's I think you can see me because I see you up there, man. Injured Zeus. I moved to North Europe because if I picked East USA, Washington, D.C. is extremely busy. You're welcome, Frontal. I really appreciate it. You're always welcome. So we're going to be first heading to Griffith Stadium. That's located in the University of Howard. Howard University, that is a historically black college. I should see a big giant hospital take over. I think it's right. Yeah, it's right. I'm right over it. There is the Howard University Hospital, which is this big giant building right here. Down here, there is where Griffith Stadium once stood, right here. But now this is a part of Howard University, and more specifically, its hospital. So there's that, and now we'll be heading to Robert F. Kennedy Stadium. Arcades on the others. But I'm actually going to go through a different way this time. Rather than going straight there, I'm going to actually take the scenic route and fly over to some of the other parts of DC. There's the famed Washington Monument. That's located up here. Now, the real unfortunate part is because DC is now photogrammetried, Rfk Stadium and Nationals Park are not photogrammetried into the sim. And if I did want to get photogrammetry, it would be from Google Maps, and that would be a whole legal issue and a half. And I had that talk with Allison, so I'm not taking any chances. So here is the famed Washington Monument, which is right here. Named after George Washington himself. Imagine taking pictures of that. As well. And right in front of us is the U.S. Capitol building. And what's funny is, then this whole straight area ahead of us, that is the National Lawn in front of us. That's where people do their protests and stuff. In the most famous protest, which was Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, was located here. So we're right in that area of history over here. There's the U.S. Capitol building. I'm glad they finally added these monuments in the sim. I don't know why they weren't in the base game. I really don't know. Especially considering this is the United States. I should get there pretty quickly. And there's what arcade stadium looks the same. It looks terrible. It looks like when Colonel Fork went to Talladega. It looks bad. And currently, right now, the stadium's actually abandoned. They're supposed to tear it down actually next year. They're starting to tear it down. So yeah, it's completely flat. It's almost like Seamus's Scotch or Murph's Jet. It's completely flat once you sit it out. You guys want to see a stunt? This is the Washington Navy Yard. Right over in this area is that. And we're going to go over Nationals Park, which is around this area. And yeah, it's just got full of office buildings. Lots and lots of office buildings. Another reason that the city of Washington needed to have photogrammetry. Boom. Okay, and I think for runway, we're gonna actually land in runway 19 at Ronald Reagan International Airport, Washington National Airport, and that's named after the U.S. President Ronald Reagan. Definitely the U.S. President that really defined the 80s was him. Now, I don't welcome politics. I try to keep out of it, but I mean, he's quite... Is that a golf course? I bet that is. That is a golf course. But before we actually get... Oh, Elton Johnson, you're here. Nice seeing... You took your picture in front of the White House in the grass. Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the point, you take pictures. Let's hope the U.S. Secret Service does not arrest you. I bet they did. So how has your day been, Allison? You've been lurking around? Yeah, I had a stutter issue really bad when trying to get Washington. So bad I had to actually exit out of the whole sim and had to restart it. Just because the stars are so terrible. And there's the Pentagon. This is where the United States and their intelligence stuff. This is where they coordinate all the military stuff. They meet here in the Pentagon. In fact, the Pentagon was actually attacked during 9/11, but it took a whole section of the building off. But thankfully, they didn't destroy the whole building. I'm kind of grateful for that. So, Allison, I'm in the Shock Ultra as well. Runway 19. You've been tinkering with your CPU. I'm hoping your CPU thing work out. Maybe that would be a lot better for you. You can take a missile at the White House. Actually, originally the terrorists were supposed to attack the White House, but thankfully that hijacking never happened. or else things could have been really bad. And then we're gonna land. Okay, we're gonna poke. I'll say some flat so I can just. This is when you want to land at a simple dirt runway. This is the ultimate short takeoff, and look at that. Who needs a long runway? Who needs it? Who needs a long runway? This is the ultimate stole machine. And frontal all's down, and Goblin Zeus. Frontal all's down in the TBM, and Druid Zeus. There's that ginormous monstrous Savage Carbon. Look at the size of those wheels. Those are ginormous wheels. Front to all needs a long runway. I don't know, you're the TBM. You got the reverse thrust on your propellers. This thing, surprisingly, that plane does not need a surprisingly short runway for a plane that fast. And you're down. So there's your Zeus, and there is friend to all. So I wanted to thank you guys a lot for coming to my stream. I really appreciate it for all those who stayed with me despite the stream having some issues. I really appreciate you all being here today. And that completes part 4 of my trip. And I'm really excited to visit this beautiful city of Baltimore and DC. And despite our issues, everything seemed to go really well on our end. So, for next Sunday, I may be able to stream at 1900 Zulu. At 1900 Zulu, I moved the time back. And we'll be taking off from here all the way down to the beautiful city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to keep track of the Philadelphia Phillies. So I really appreciate for all the support. And I wish to see you guys. Goodbye. But before we go, let's see if we can find someone to check out and visit, shall we? I think we should probably check out Jay Winokur. I think Jay Winokur would be very happy to see us here. Don't you guys think? So take care, everyone, and goodbye.